What's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Toast, and you know what? The fun week just continues on and on and on, especially if you're looking forward to the Switch 2 or if you're a Game Pass subscriber. Of course, we have the Switch 2 pre-orders later tonight. Good luck, everybody. If the Japanese pre-order demand is anything to go by, we're all going to need some luck. Nonetheless, though, what I want to talk about today is Game Pass, because my goodness, they are killing it right now. Every once in a while, we get a truly just astounding lineup of games from them, and this week alone might actually be the single best week in Game Pass history. And that's truly saying something, considering this service is already pretty consistently good. So just stay tuned because, wow. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do. I truly do appreciate you. Let's go and get right into things, though, starting off with the Switch 2 and a newly announced Sega launch title. I mean, after all of these years, for Sega to launch a debut Nintendo game, it is still somewhat strange to think about, just considering their bitter rivalry back during the 90s. But here we are decades later, and they're now great partners with each other. Sega is actually one of the Switch 2's biggest third-party supporters, with games like Yakuza, 2 Point Museum, Raidu Remastered, and that list also now includes Sonic X Shadow Generation, which was just announced for the Switch 2. Even better is that it'll be a launch title, and for anybody who hasn't already played it, it's a great game. It's probably one of the better Sonic games that you can pick up, and I'm probably a little biased just because I am a big fan of Shadow. He's finally back, but truthfully, I think it's a great Sonic game and a good fit for the Switch 2. I mean, I would have said the same thing for the Switch 1, but unfortunately, its performance left a lot to be desired on the Switch 1. But this should change that quite significantly, and now I can truly recommend Sonic X Shadow Generation for Nintendo fans. Now, speaking of release dates, today out of nowhere, PlayStation revealed the release date for Ghost of Yotei. It's officially set for October 2nd, so there you go. This is going to be their big holiday exclusive, or at least one of them. And that's why this news, I'd say, is somewhat surprising. I mean, you would think that Sony would have given it more of a spotlight with a PlayStation showcase or a state of play reveal to get millions of viewers on board, but instead, they just kind of dropped a new trailer and a blog and said, hey, here you go. Here's some new footage and an October release date. I mean, so far, its trailer already has 890,000 views, and it's still currently growing. So, the truth is, whether or not it got its own showcase doesn't really seem to matter in the grand scheme of things. I mean, look at what happened with Oblivion as one such example. It just got a shadow drop on a random Tuesday, and even still, it's already surpassed 180,000 concurrent players on Steam. So, what that tells me is that if you have a strong enough IP, then you can kind of get away with a more unorthodox reveal like this, and that's what I would currently describe this announcement for Ghost of Yotei. Nonetheless, pre-orders will go live on May 2nd at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and this even includes a collector's edition. I'll go and post an image on screen so you can see everything included, and you can see that it has some neat collectibles, such as a displayable ghost mask. Now, unfortunately, this edition only includes a digital copy of the game, which is pretty standard anymore when it comes to these standard editions. They have to kind of do that because they do have a digital-only PS5 console option. But either way, this edition will be exclusive to PlayStation Direct if you are indeed interested. Okay, now let's go and get to the big news of the day, and I'd almost describe this as a somewhat bittersweet moment. And maybe that's strange for me to say, given that we're getting two seemingly incredible games back-to-back. I mean, you Game Pass subscribers out there are truly spoiled. So, I mean, come on, just fantastic stuff. But there is kind of that downside to this overall very exciting situation, and I will get into that a little bit today. Now, that doesn't stop my own personal excitement, nor should it stop yours. But sometimes, when you have just too much incredible stuff jam-packed so close together, this is something that I've talked a lot about on the channel in the past, that doesn't always have the positive impact that you might hope for. Titanfall 2 was kind of a victim of that back in the day. I'll circle back to that in a moment. But of course, yesterday, we got the Oblivion Shadow Drop. And there's no doubt about it, that's a massive release from one of the most popular RPG franchises of all time. I mean, for that matter, depending on who you ask, Oblivion is usually listed as the best or the second best Elder Scrolls game ever. So to say that there's some excitement for its launch is really a bit of an understatement. It's legitimately one of the biggest and most popular RPGs of all time. But what kind of surprises me about its release, and I've talked about this a few different times, and it's why I was skeptical about this week being the week for Oblivion's release. Here tomorrow, we have the day one release for Expedition 33, and by all indication, this game also looks incredible. It's one of the most ambitious turn-based JRPGs that we've seen in a very, very long time, and there's been a lot of anticipation for it, and a lot of hopium that it will be a good overall game. So I wasn't sure if Xbox would actually release Oblivion so close to another big-time Xbox Game Pass title, Expedition 33. Yet here we are, and now we have what appears to be two of the biggest releases for 2025 within a 2-day period from one another. Expedition 33 reviews rolled out today, and not only is it meeting expectations, I'm happy to say that, it's actually far out exceeding them. Yeah, check this out. It has a 92 overall score on Metacritic with 56 total reviews. So that's a pretty good sample size. And just to kind of put that into perspective, that makes Expedition 33 the highest rated game of 2025, tied with only Blueprints, which, by the way, ironically is also an Xbox Game Pass title. So I just want to go and point that out for all the people out there that acts like Xbox Game Pass only gets, as the youngsters likes to say, mid-games. Yeah, this kind of shatters that narrative, and I'll just leave it at that. I'll say it again, Game Pass legitimately now has the number 1 and the number 2 best-rated games of 2025. And if you haven't already listened to the reviews for Expedition 33, definitely go do so. But people are describing it as one of the best JRPGs ever made. Yeah, that's pretty high praise, and it really seems like it comes from all avenues, whether that be for its characters, its story, or its combat. There seems to be nothing but high praise for what it has to offer. I mean, frankly, it sounds like Expedition 33 is a generational type of game that everybody should play, and I think that's my current fear right now. I've mentioned this in a few different videos, but because it's a new IP, I worry, even if it's just a little, I worry that it'll get somewhat overshadowed by the launch of Oblivion Remastered. I mean, at least they are separate genres. One's a JRPG, one's a Western RPG, and, these reviews, a 92, will certainly help with the situation, but it is one of those games where I wish it had a little more time to itself to truly breathe. It is a new IP at the end of the day, and I almost wonder if the studio that worked on Expedition 33 would have, if they would have known about Oblivion, if they would have maybe pushed out its release date just a little more. But at the same time, to be fair here, if you look at Game Pass, it's pretty stacked for the foreseeable future. Next month we have Doom: The Dark Ages. That's another huge title. And then in July we have Tony Hawk 3+4. So all I can really say here, just from a fan's perspective, Game Pass subscribers right now have plenty to eat, and just wow. Like, what a killer service. It really just pays for itself over a period of year if you play a lot of games. And right now, it's looking like one of Game Pass's best years ever. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Are you going to play Expedition 33 tomorrow, or are you going to instead play Oblivion first? And also, how do you feel about Xbox and Bethesda releasing Oblivion just so close to its release, especially, in hindsight, knowing that Expedition 33 could actually be a generational type of game? Now, one last thing before we go, though, and people are freaking out about this right now. Of course, we have the Switch 2 pre-orders tonight. Good luck, everybody. And a lot of people are already stressed out as is, because there's no guarantee that everybody's going to get their pre-order in. That's just the reality of the pre-order process anymore. And apparently in Japan, that's very much going to be the case. Nintendo just issued a warning to Japanese consumers that demand far out exceeds the supply that they have available for launch. They said on April 2nd, we announced details about the Nintendo Switch 2 and started accepting applications for the lottery sale on the My Nintendo store. As a result, we received an extremely large number of applications, approximately 2.2 million people in Japan alone. However, this number far exceeds the number of Nintendo Switch 2 consoles that can be delivered from the My Nintendo store on June 5th. Therefore, unfortunately, we expect that a significant number of customers will not be selected when the winners are announced tomorrow, April 24th. So, a lot of people in the West are reading this, and now they're just kind of assuming that it's going to be another chaotic pre-order process. And I've talked about this before. Whether or not it is, I think that if you really want the Switch 2, that's truthfully the best mentality that you can possibly have. Expect the worst, because that will make you more proactive to get your pre-order in as quick as possible. And even if it's a smooth process, well, the result's still the same. You'll have done what you needed to do, and then you can simply relax until June 5th, when hopefully you'll have the Switch 2 in hand. So even if this story doesn't impact the West, maybe the United States has the majority of the first wave. But either which way, expect the worst. That way you can get a better result no matter what. And that's just kind of how I look at the situation. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.